Hey guys, Sean Terry here, flip2freedom.com. Hope you're doing well. All right, in this video, I want to talk about how to sell a wholesale deal to a retail buyer. I'm going to break down a deal that we recently closed step by step. I'm going to show you the property, the calculator, how we came up with the numbers. We're going to talk about, I'm going to go through some of the paperwork and how we got paid, how we got the property listed on the MLS, how we talked to the seller and got the deal, be able to have the seller understand that process. So we're going to break down the whole thing on how to wholesale a property to a retail buyer, a conventional buyer, and get the deal closed. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So stay tuned.
I can't take no loss. Yeah. I don't even know what it costs. Yeah, I hit the ground and it go off. Yeah, hit the ground and it go off. Yeah, yeah, run it. Ooh, I really feel it's my time. Think it's my year. Yeah, yeah. I really feel it's my time. Think it's my year. Yeah, yeah. I really feel it's my time. Think it's my year. Yeah, yeah. I really feel it's my time. Think it's my. Yeah.
All right, so selling your property as a real estate wholesaler to a conventional retail buyer that's using a conventional loan or an FHA loan or a VA loan or a USDA loan historically has been impossible because of the break in the chain of title, meaning the underwriter that's writing the conventional loan or FHA VA, they want to see that the transactions done between the seller and the buyer, and there's no break between the buyer and the seller, and that's called the break in the chain of title. Meaning, if you're a wholesaler and you're going to get it under contract and to try to find a buyer, well, now they're going to see the buyer, you, and then the seller. That would break the chain of title, and the transaction would not be able to be complete. So, as a real estate wholesaler, we would sell to a cash buyer that uses either cash or private financing, hard money, and we could assign our contract, or we could do what's called the double escrow, simultaneous close. So, when we talk about, how to, it's been like, the question that I've asked for, last 19, 20 years is how to sell to a retail buyer, because the retail buyer will pay more for a property. A retail buyer will pay significantly more, because when you're selling to a cash buyer, the old, formula would be, 70% less repairs, less your fee, right? And that's what you would offer, and you'd sell it to a wholesale buyer, to a cash buyer for 70% less your fee. So, and obviously the hotter the market, the higher you're going to go on, and maybe it's 80% less repairs or 90% less repairs. Now that the market is correcting, interest rates are rising, buyers are looking for deals, especially cash buyers. So now you really have to get that property low, and you got to sell it at the 70% less repairs, and find a cash buyer that will buy that property. So it's becoming difficult on the acquisition side to be able to get these deals. So in this video, I'm going to break down a deal where we actually got the property under contract, and we sold the property as a real estate wholesaler to a conventional retail buyer, and how we got paid without breaking that chain of title. And I'm going to kind of walk through the property and the situation with you so you can understand that process. So let's see. Let's go on the computer here. All right. So here's the property. It's in Springfield, Ohio. And cute little property there. And if I go to here, you can see here's the property on the MLS. We recently sold it for $100,000, a 2-bed, 1-bath, 672, square feet. Here is actually our MLS listing photos. So, people say that, can you list a property on the MLS that is ugly? And the answer is yes. Just like that. These are MLS listed pictures, and a conventional retail buyer came in and bought this property, right? If we go to sales history, you can see it was listed right there on May 22nd. And literally a couple days later, it went pending. And then we sold it for full asking price, or actually $2,000 less than that right there. So this property came off of Google AdWords. So we ran a Google AdWords campaign, pay-per-click advertising. A seller called in, said they wanted to sell their property, got the property under contract. Obviously, there was distress there, and they wanted to sell it. And so what we did, and let me go back to my documents here. And here is, first off, we put our property through a calculator. So this is the calculator, and you can see right here, we take the Redfin estimate, we take the REI Automator estimate, and then we take the Zillow estimate. And what it does, it gives us basically an average value. We take the property square footage. I'm not sure why that's not in there, but they don't have any repairs put in there for the property at all. And there's 50, 60, and 70%. And this is a screenshot of the actual at the time when the property was signed. So the offer came, at 50%, we got 58, we've got 63, we got 81. So if you see, here's our max allowable offers based upon that, and not to go out of that parameter. So if you look at here, you can see we got the property for $60,000. So if we go back, we're right at that, like 60% of value. So $60,000, we got the property under contract for. So this is simple contract, $60,000, our basic contract that we have. The next thing here is what's called an attorney in fact. It's an authorization to sign listing docs. It gives us the ability to sign listing docs. And I'll talk about here in a second of, the conversation that we have with the seller, and full transparencies. They have to know exactly what's happening in the transaction, and you have to be fully transparent with them. So there's no issues downline, and they have what's called a good customer experience. If you hide the fact you're going to list it, or if you hide the fact you're going to make a profit, because you think they're not going to go with you because you hide the fact that you're not going to list it or make a profit, then what happens is when the listing goes live, they get mad, or they see you're making a profit, they get mad. So we have to handle on the front end and let them know, listen, for us to do business, here's where we need to be to get the deal done. Here's how we have to do it. And you're transparent through the whole entire process. There are some people who are going to say, no, forget it, I'm not going to do that. But more times than not, especially in our current market, they're going to say, fine, go ahead and do it. And that transparency is really important. So now what this does, it gives us the ability to list the property on the MLS, like we just saw right here. So we listed it on the MLS. And typically what we do is we use either a local agent or we use a flat fee listing service. So what we'll do is we'll use a company like Brokerless. Brokerless is a flat fee listing service. And they charge like, $200, $250, and they'll list the property on the MLS. Now, the inbound calls come to us. So we list it, we do all the description, all the information. Inbound calls come to us, and then we will book the appointments with the seller for people to go look at the property. I think this property was vacant at the time. So picture this. So we have a property under contract with the seller, and we'll talk about the conversation. Then what we did is we, had an attorney in fact, explained it to the seller, and then we listed that property on the MLS. Now we had inbound calls from agents that wanted to see the property, and now they're going to go over, they're going to bring their clients over to the property, and then they're going to make an offer on the property. So now that the property, or people have gone through it, now they're going to make an offer on the property. So here is now that offer. right? So the offer comes in, it's just a regular real estate, you know how they have the 15-page contracts. We've got the purchase price $100,000. Financing is conventional financing. So now what's great about this is that we can take offers from conventional financing. Now, we sign the purchase agreements. The seller signs the disclosures about the property because they know about the property. We don't, we've never seen it. And then the seller signs all the closing documents. So the seller signs the disclosures, the seller signs all the closing documents, the deed and everything like that. All we do is we have the attorney in fact that allows us to list the property and sign the purchase contract as the attorney in fact on the seller's behalf. Okay. So what happens now is we have a contract now for that. And then what we'll do is we'll file what's called a notice of interest. And it's a notice of interest that essentially puts in the public record, just like a memorandum of sale. If you have a purchase contract, you're going to file a memorandum of sale. It puts essentially a notice of interest on title that now that notice of interest will be released, and that's how you get paid on the release of the notice of interest. It would just be like if you had a mortgage that was recorded against the property, then that would be released at the time of closing, whether it be a memorandum sale. Let's say someone's in breach of contract and there's an anticipatory breach situation, and you file a memorandum to protect your position. And let's say they go sell the property to someone else. Well, guess what? You could essentially have them pay you to release that notice of interest, or you could, say that you want to continue the purchase and purchase the property. The bottom line in this situation is we file the notice of interest. It now is a recorded instrument that now needs to be released at the time of closing. So now we have the release of the notice of interest, right? So now we release the notice of interest, and then here is the actual HUD and the payoff. So now you'll see the pay is $32,240 to Terry's real estate investment. There's the $100,000 right there, and there's the seller's funds. So if you see right there, now we're on there as the notice of interest payoff, and it's right there in plain English on the HUD that the seller signs, right? And this is 90. Probably about 98 to 99% of our transactions are done exactly like this. Now, there are questions that people have, and they go, well, how do you get paid? Well, you get paid because you're releasing the notice of interest for a payoff. Now, how do you calculate the payoff? You calculate the payoff at $100,000 minus the fees, right? And the fees will come out of your side, any type of seller closing fees, and any type of commissions that are paid to a real estate agent are going to come out of that transaction. So you're going to have $100,000 minus the fees, and then you're going to have your number, which is the payoff. And that number is going to be your contract price, $60,000, $100,000 minus fees, and the balance is going to be your payoff. And essentially it would be $32,000 in this case. Now, that's how it's calculated in the end when it comes to your actually payoff to get paid off on the HUD. Other questions are, is this a novation? No, it's not a novation. A novation essentially novates or replaces your purchase contract with your seller. In this particular case, we're not novating that purchase contract. We're filing a notice of interest to get paid at the close of title, close of escrow. So other people ask, well, how do you talk to a seller? You got a seller that's calling in, they're looking for a cash offer. How does that work? Well, if we go back to the calculator, right here, let me go back to the, I'll go back to the calculator. Essentially what we do is we have the cash number, right? And it's actually in this one's, we have 58. We're actually right down at that that lower number. Essentially, what we'll do is we'll have a low number that we'll start off on, and in this particular case, that low number was probably in the $30,000, $40,000, maybe $50,000 range, and then we have the ability to pivot to a higher number. And even if we offer a lower number, we still have the ability to list the property, and we tell them. So first off, we're telling the seller that number one, we're a real estate investment company and we're here to make a profit. We're not going to live in the property. And what we're going to do is we're going to sell the property to a retail buyer. And we're going to find that retail buyer by listing the property on the MLS. So typically what we do is we have offer a lower cash number for the property. And that lower cash number, what we'll do is it's low enough where we have the ability to sell it to a cash buyer. And then we don't list the property on the MLS. We'll find a cash buyer in that local market. We'll use something like Investor Lift, or we'll call agents in that local market that potentially have cash buyers. And if the price is low enough, we can sell it. Now, 99% of the people don't take that lower number. So we pivot to a higher number, and we pivot to that higher number. It comes with those, specifically that we're going to list the property on the MLS. We're not the buyer. We're going to find a retail buyer. And what's the benefit of going with us is that we're going to handle any type of issues. If there's any repairs on the property, we're going to handle. If there's any commissions or closing costs or fees, we're going to handle that. Obviously you're going to pay your property taxes, but we're going to handle everything else after the fact. We're going to handle any logistics when it comes to negotiating or the contract, or it comes to you're going to be available to actually have people see the property, but we're going to handle everything else. So there's the couple different things. There are certain people that don't want to handle that stuff, or they don't want to handle the property, or they're out of state. And what we're doing is we're looking for a specific clientele that have a real estate problem that we can solve. 95% of the people aren't going to be our client because they can just list the property on the MLS themselves and they can get the higher price. That's not our client. Our client is someone who, in this particular case, is maybe an absentee and the property is trashed by a tenant. They don't want to deal with it. They just give me a price, $60,000. They're happy, and whatever you do, just go handle it. Just get me my $60,000. We're good. I don't care what else you do. And that's the clientele that we help out of their situation. We've helped properties with vagrants. We've helped properties that have divorce situations. We've helped properties where there's 6 different siblings involved in the transaction we're trying to work with and get done. We've dealt with fire damage properties. We've dealt with tenant damage properties. We deal with tenants that are in the property and not paying, and we have to handle and get those people out. So we've dealt with where someone they're moving to another area and they have to have a long post-possession. We've dealt with that too. Those are all non-traditional type of transactions where we can come in and we can help the situation. Now, if someone comes in and says, hey, I want a cash offer on the property, and we offer them the lower cash offer, and they go, oh, I don't want to do that. They want the higher number, right? But there is no distress. I mean, I was just on the phone with the seller earlier, and there was no distress there. He didn't have to sell the property. There is no real problem there. Then I told him, so listen, your best bet is just list the property. You can list it for a higher price. You can wait the 30, 40, 45, 60 days. There's no impending event there, and you can sell your property for retail. And that's your benefit to be able to do that. You don't need us in the transaction. So we shine when there's a big problem. And that's what I want to get clear, is because, people go, well, what's the difference between, why don't you just list it with a realtor? Because most of the time in this particular case, they were out of state. The property was essentially vacant. It was trashed. It was left disgusting by a tenant. Now, they didn't want to clean it up and fix it. We could have went in and cleaned it up, but we listed the property and we sold it. And now it was below market, below everything else. I mean, close to below, about $150,000 on average, below market. And now a conventional buyer could come in, they could get it below market, they could clean it up, and now they could have a house, 600 square feet in Ohio. They could make their home. So it's essentially a win-win situation. And the goal is to be 100% transparent, because the fee is going to be on the HUD, right? That payoff is going to be on the HUD. They're going to see it. They're going to see the listing. They're going to see the whole thing. So you've got to be transparent. So if you're transparent, you have to have the right clientele you're talking to and be straightforward on the front end. And if you do that, you will get contracts. We're getting more contracts today than we ever had. And you would think that you're going to get less because you're telling them you're making profit. You're going to list it on the MLS, but that's not the case, which is amazing. So, hope this helps. This is how a transaction happens, from start to finish, and the paperwork that's needed, and how you kind of talk to the seller. And once you adopt that, once you wrap your head and actually do one transaction, it makes a big difference. So, if you want to learn more, we're actually doing a live training that's coming up here, and you can click the link in the bio below, or in the description below, and we're going to go through a lot more details on the deal. You know, we have multiple different deals we're going to cover. We're going to talk specifically about the actual script in talking to the seller. We're going to talk about how to calculate if a deal is a no deal or a deal if it fits this particular model. You have to know, I can't sign a contract with a deal and then all of a sudden find out there is no money in the deal. So calculating that, what markets it work with, what type of properties is it qualified for FHA? If it doesn't, what does that look like? So there's a lot of variables in exactly how to do this correctly. This is an example deal, but we're going to do a live. We're going to explain all that on the live that's coming up. All you do is click the link in the bio, register for that, and I can tell you it will be a game changer on the way you do business. Now, we still do cash transactions, but we list 100% of our deals. Every single property on the board we have right now are listed on the MLS. Now, we let the MLS be opportunistic. Is it a cash transaction, or is it going to be a RBP, or a retail buyer program, that we can actually offer a higher price to the seller and be able to sell it to a retail buyer and still make on average about $30,000 per deal. So hope this helps. Click the link in the bio, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.
I can't take no loss. Yeah, I don't even know what it costs. Yeah, I hit the ground and it go off. Yeah, hit the ground and it go off. Yeah, run it. Ooh, I really feel it's my time. Think it's my year. Yeah, I really feel it's my time. Think it's my year. Yeah, I really feel it's my time. Think it's my year. Yeah, I really feel it's my time.